Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to what is currently a beautiful moment in our Sunday here. Hopefully we'll be able to do this with the original audio recording, and I won't have to do some sort of a voiceover thing. But I thought I would show you, what's growing on this week. We've had a few screw ups in the usual schedule, so some of the plants are advancing, some of the plants are already starting to show signs of dying, but we'll get to that. And you may or may not be able to hear the chickens in the background, again, depending on whether or not we end up with the voiceover. So while there's no wind, let's get going on this, and I'll show you around. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite strange little places in our garden. This is John Deere parts crate that I rescued from the burn pile. Worked out fairly well. I mean, it's mostly filled with landscaping compost, so it's kind of questionable, but there's a lot of potting soil and just earth and stuff in there as well. Got a lot of soil when we dug up the swale garden, so I'm counting on it to be safe enough in cases of like herbs here. Thai basil seems to be doing fairly well. It's a slender leafed basil to begin with, so I mean, it doesn't look like it's doing well when you compare it to like a Genovese basil or whatever, but you don't need these are surplus to requirement. But yeah, it's very potent in its flavor. I've been very much enjoying this since it's been transplanted out here. Fills out the corner nicely. Too bad the asparagus never sprouted. I was going to plant some seeds in there, just never got around to it. Here we've got the sugar dottle cream still alive, and a few places it looks like we may even have pepper starts. Kind of hard to tell, especially with this camera. Got a few flowers on here, but at this point in the year, I mean, we're into August already. I really don't know that I see that producing anything for me. And this poor little resilient pepper still in its cup. Mahuchalokia chocolate habanero. Got a couple of those out in the garden. Hopefully we'll get a chance to look at those while the wind is behaving itself. Some random volunteer tomatoes. These were growing up in the mouse melons. Needed to be transplanted out. Can't really tell what varieties they are, but I can kind of tell what size the fruit is going to be based on the size of the flower. It's quite interesting that way. Cherry tomatoes tend to put on little tiny flowers, whereas your sandwich tomatoes and your beefsteak type, I guess, tend to have a much larger flower. We'll look over at this one here. It's got some nice examples of just exactly what I'm talking about. That is going to be a reasonable sized tomato. Probably going to end up as a fried green tomato. And here we can see, hopefully the camera will focus on that. We can see the little green beginnings of a tomato. Fantastic. Still no flowers coming out of my pocket seeds there yet, but there's a uniformity that says those are definitely all from those pocket seeds. It would be nice to see something pop up so I can kind of remember why I grabbed them, and maybe they can repopulate the planter. Finally pulled out the dead basil and all these tomatoes here, highly overplanted. But we do have a couple of flower starts on a couple of these, so we'll see. One of them may get pulled over to the no power aquaponics thing, but we've had such cold nights lately, I don't know if I see the point in getting that going. Pop up front here and take a look at the random apple tree. Rather a lot of, nice fruit on here, but the tree cannot support it, and we're losing a lot of them to the ground. Came up earlier with a little bucket, filled it up and put it in with the chickens. And I discovered it's quite, see there go a couple more, quite entertaining watching the chickens bobbing for apples in a bucket. So while I probably should have spread them out on the floor in their little run area, I didn't. Just kind of left them bobbing for it. Keeps them busy though, right? Now we've got a little bit, let's see if I can move the camera in, and hopefully it's picking this up. We've got a little bit of color coming in on these. And I have an older video from our first year here that kind of indicates these might get to a Macintosh red. But I just don't know. They're, one shake of a branch and the apples are falling. Don't know if it's going to make it or not. It's trying so hard this year though, so I'll give it props for that. While we're here, Take a look at Shox's Fairy Garden squash. They're doing all right. And actually, while we're up here, in past there's sage from the Arrow Garden. But what I wanted to show you is those gochis we transplanted did actually make it through. Not a lot of fresh growth this year, and it's all based really low on the plants. But that'll improve in the next few years and it'll grow out. So that'll be good. I mean, I really thought I'd killed those gochis off. So, yes. A little wildflower patch. Very cute, nice and pretty. I like these flowers here in particular. But we're off topic, so let's go check out the back garden patch way over there past the carriganas. Yes, before we do that, let's take a look at these first peppers that came out. This is the Lemon Habanero. Got a few decent pods on here. Nothing really taking color yet, but I suspect that's going to change soon. These colder nights are, well, they're going to send these peppers into a state of shock. It says, produce them seeds or die as a species. So that is what it is. Finally have little bitty pod forming on this Caribbean red. Just right there. That's interesting. Too little too late, I think, from this plant, but appreciate the effort. Here's an interesting little bit on our way back to the main patch. These are those Indigo Rose that volunteered up in the old planter. Look at that. Now if you're growing these, this is the kind of color you're looking for. Do not pick them before you see something like this red here. They are at their best when they are fully ripened on the plant. We may get some more out of these because they are starting to ripen up now, but not really holding my breath. Wait till you see the Indigo Rose that's growing out in the garden patch with all those peppers though. That's doing surprisingly well. We've got another Thai basil down here. I do really enjoy these Thai basil plants. This was just kind of a bonus one, so it ended up there. Over with our red currants. Got a couple sandwich baggies full of these this year, so that's not bad. Leaving a few on there to fall and hopefully naturally produce more for me, so I can just spread them out. Yep, really enjoying these. Quite a flavor indeed. Let's see if we can get a good shot in here. Some of the ones that are left. Not bad considering how much of it was completely ravaged by those caterpillars too, so that really impressed me. Not impressive is what's going on with the Cabbage Patch here. Thankfully still no dolls popping out, but you'll notice as soon as we removed those cloths, will you ladies zip it please? Just give me 2 minutes. Jeez, those chickens. As soon as we removed the cloths to let the predatory insects in to deal with the aphids, we got borrasca moths on these things big time. So I think the vast majority of this garden is going to end up feeding those loudmouth birds, which is a tragedy. But I think the lesson in this is that next year I need to plant the cabbage seeds directly into the ground, none of this starting it in the dungeon, and then put the cloth on. So hopefully in that way I can eliminate the aphids and the borrasca moths. That poor kale was the only one that made it, and it hasn't made it far. Yeah, so eliminate the aphids and the borrasca moths, and hopefully get a win out of my cabbage patch instead of a pretty little tragedy. Lace cabbages, as I like to call them, but we all know that's bunk, isn't it? Alright. Yes, so is there something you wanted to say now that we're over here with the camera, or are you just being loud for the sake of being loud? Look, probably not showing up through the screen there, but I can see they've tipped over their bucket of apples. Make it a little easier to get at them. Nice little dust bath going on in the middle there. These chicks have gotten huge though. I mean, easily the same size as Bunty. I had a strange dream about eggs being laid in strange places the other day, so I think we're getting close to a little bit more random in the coop. which means it's definitely time to get rid of some of these surplus birds. And fun to have them though, and amazing just to watch how quickly they grow up from itty bitty chicks to monster bossy chickens that like to play with tin pans. Yes, that's right. Alright, so off to the garden, I guess. Okay, well, I often miss this little part of the garden, so let's start here where we're looking at the $1 clearance seed potatoes. We got some decent growth going on. None of these are really flowering yet, although a couple of the volunteer red potatoes that I threw in did flower. They're just back over here. And I believe Shocks said that the flowers had fallen off. And where are you? Yes, the flowers have fallen off. So I think that means we can harvest baby potatoes out of there as long as we're not trying to store them. A little feedback on that would be excellent. But the rest of this particular bed is just those $1 clearance. These are definitely overplanted, but we're kind of going for smaller potatoes. So, you know, it is what it is there. That brings us right over here. This is the Indigo Rose growing with the taters. We don't see anywhere near as much purpling in the vine, but it's quite evident looking at the fruit that that's exactly what this puppy is. Whoop. That's a tragedy, but a good example. Let's pull that out. Now when you look at these, right, it's not all purple. The part that doesn't receive the direct sunlight does stay your standard tomato green, and that's what you're gonna watch turn to the red that I showed you earlier. But yeah, unfortunately, even though this may look ripe eventually sitting on the counter, it will never taste like much more than styrofoam. They're terrible when you pick them early. So we're at the back of the pepper patch, which means we are in the heart of the Lemon Habaneros. And let's see how this first plant looks. I see a few little ones on there. Kind of hard to see with a couple of weeds that I've left. Check beside it, we've got a pretty decent example here. Nice looking pod. No real color on it yet. I did pull the one off the strangely bitten plant, because when we had our first really cold night, it went super soft. Looking forward, don't see a lot on this one. However, one up, one over. I'm gonna crawl my way into the garden here. I want to try and show you. Come on, where are you? This monster here. Fantastic looking pod. Underneath it we've got disagreeable plants. Looking beside it on the same plant, we've got a couple more really nice pods. So for some reason, this plant has been wonderfully productive. One beside it here, got some nice looking ones on it too. Just a good patch in the garden, I guess. Up here in the Caribbean Reds, I found this the other day. Not quite ripe, so I'm not pulling it just yet. Still kind of an orange. The plant beside it, hopefully we can get this on camera. There's a couple of pods in there, but the one closest to the stem is starting to get a bit of color. So interestingly enough, the Caribbean Reds produced flowers and pods a lot later, but they're ripening in shorter time periods. So very, very interesting how the pepper garden has played out this year. And I guess we'll kind of wrap it up today with a look at the sisters patch. Here we are with those racer pumpkins. And finally, up in the front here, we can see one female that looks like it got properly pollinated and is going to grow. We'll try and look in a bit deeper here. And you can see that one that is definitely not making it. It's already dying on the plant. So, yeah, hopefully we will get at least one pumpkin before it gets too cold. Would have thought with all this growth Would have gotten some more than that, but we'll take a big, broad look at it before we carry on. Do a quick battery change while we're at it. Very entertaining. The only 2 motorcycles in town. Chose that exact moment to roll by. Here we're looking at the beans we've got in the sister's garden. Finally starting to get some decent size, much more visible. A lot of little tiny ones on here still. I've been very entertained because the hummingbirds have been going from Shox's feeder out front to come back here, and they'll grab some of these brighter leaves and just kind of toss them to the side before flying off to the feeders again. So I don't know if they're offended by the color without nectar. Lots of garden visitors like this one here. Work it, my little friend. Work it. Thanks for being here today. Greatly appreciate that. Reminds me I want to get on building that swarm trap, so hopefully I can catch some wild honeybees and get started in that adventure. But we can see these beans here growing all the way along the side of that fence and just doing a great job of it. Much like that one pepper plant though, something's been coming along and eating the leaves off of the top of all this. So I don't know if that's birds or what, but it is what it is, and I'm still getting beans, so I'll take it. Tassels on the corn are starting to explode, so I'm shaking these over any open ears that I find, and following some fantastic advice about collecting pollen from in the leaves there. So hopefully the few ears that we are getting will be nice and full, because it would be nice to get something out of this much garden space. I do feel that everything was definitely planted too close together, and that is going to be a big part of why I've had problems with my corn this year. But we've seen similar overplanting and similar lack of positive results in these gardens in the past, so it's no longer a theory. I'm going to call that one a local garden fact. Yeah, too close together means you ain't getting jack out of your corn. Look at this collection of pollen going on here. Almost want to pop that leaf off and shake it over a couple of the ears in there. Because yeah, if I'm only getting a few cob of corn, I want them to be kerneled up. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I know you do. Oh yeah, but look at that though. Very productive in the tassels. No question of that. So I think there is something to be said for this variety of corn. This is the espresso corn out of Vessie's seeds. I got a lot of variation in growth and maturity, but again, I'm inclined to think that has something to do with my overplanting, lack of a proper fertilizing regime, intermittent watering. There are a few things that are undoubtedly factoring into that, and some of the randoms that I'm allowing to grow. Like for example, here we have a really nice volunteer tomato. Got some flowers on it, so I'm leaving it because these may be some of the only tomatoes we get this year. You know, if we go into the heart of the corn patch, I was reminded of Field of Dreams as I walk through this. If you build it, they will come. We've got a nice little cluster of these volunteer tomatoes, and they've all got some nice little flower sets on them. Now, actually, this is a good example to show you what I was talking about earlier. If we compare, come on, focus on the right thing. If we compare the flower size on these ones here to the flowers that I was showing you earlier, I very much suspect that these are cherry variety, and from the leaves I suspect, as I said before, that these are the broad ripple yellow currant tomatoes that Rob Bob was kind enough to send me all those years ago. My itty bitty channel, just starting off with my aquaponic obsession, which for the record hasn't really changed. I'm still completely obsessed, just not doing as much about it as I'd like to. Lots on the go. Yeah, it'd be nice. I want those to be fully kerneled up. Ooh, and from this angle here, hopefully you can see it. It's just the beginnings of some hairs popping out there, so that's going to have to get sprinkled next time I'm out. Probably going to be getting a paper bag though, Check out Eric Hale's video on getting better sweet corn production, I think might have been the title. You'll have to look through his videos and find it, but that's a good enough clue, pretty sure. Alright, so far the wind has behaved itself and I'm pretty excited about that, but my batteries seem to be dying awful quick, so I guess I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for sticking around and you know, following through the garden season with me. It's always a lot of fun to share this with you guys, and you know, if I encourage you to give it a try because hey, I fail and keep trying, then great, give it a try. Go out there, do the best you can. Worst case scenario, you fail. It happens all the time. You learn stuff when you fail though, so it's actually a good thing. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up. Don't know what else to say, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Much love, my garden friends and family. Take care of yourselves.